So have Vietnam prepared itself steady and ready to be a good investment and doing business destination in the future? Yes, with all of what I have shown you, yes, Vietnam has been quite steady and in good stage, right? How about if it's ready or not? Then we might not be able to answer yet. So let's get into to look further to see if it's a ready country for good investment destination or not. Remember to subscribe to my channel for the future videos, for the upcoming videos related to this topic as well. Okay? Vietnam has many obstacles that block the country from reaching its full potential and beyond. You can see this chart from the IMS. The Vietnam actual GDP is not even reaching the potential GDP with economic scaling. And even if the country does better, then the economic with less scaling then is much better. We have a huge gap, few percent in growth. If the country could reach beyond and reduce its current problems, okay? So some of the main problems at the moment that block it from full growth and beyond the full growth with less scaling. First is infrastructure. Vietnam infrastructure ranked very low in the similar countries. It's ranked 80 out of 141 countries in the world, in the bottom 50%. And with that, it needs a lot of development to improve its business environment, to get better, to encourage investment into the country, encourage doing business in the country. The second problem, the country has unclear policy system, unclear legal procedures and sort of thing. Every decree the government issue, okay, is the terms and definition is kind of vague and needs extra explanation, clarification. And even a lot of the time when I do business with many of my investors coming to Vietnam, we need write the letters to the authority to get the clarification. And a lot of the time, the government body could not even explain clearly the terms either, because they themselves, okay, also read the policy, read the decrees, and those decrees in itself already not clear. So that makes the investment, even lawyers could not fully clarify all those terms. So that makes the investment environment more complicated, more confused, and is with this less transparency, and that makes it more difficult to do business, to do investment in Vietnam, and more risky as well, right? And the third problem that I mentioned before is corruption. Even though it's been trying very hard to clean the system, but it takes not just few years to get fully clean, and also to stabilize after cleaning up this corruption system. So with that in mind, still Vietnam a good investment destination or not? Okay, we look further. Okay, first we look into the short and mid-term. As reason going on with the messy around the world, Vietnam government has been trying very hard to match the economy in a way that it still have normal development and normal growth in the economy. So in recent months, the Vietnam government has launched and going to launch many fiscal support packages to stimulate the economy. One of the support packages is just this issue recently is that the Decree 12/2023 NDCP, which is focusing on exemption and reduction in the tax area. Okay, the VAT and also the CIT for many industries has been reduced. At the same time, they have many easing monetary policies, reducing the guide interest rates, and this also the control of the Vietnam dong in FX and also control inflation because of the manufacturing going back to normal, so the FX is getting back to normal, so it's better. At the same time, the CPI also being controlled. The guidance is at 4.5%, but most of the institutions in Vietnam, they forecast around 3.5 to 4% in inflation in 2023. That is a normal level of Vietnam economy. If you see from my previous chart of historical GDP for Vietnam, as you also see that Vietnam has a huge reduction in the public debt, so it can be able to have more stimulate packages to increase the economy activities, even though recently we see that because of the effects from the war, private sector has been slowing down a little bit. Because of that, the government can do more in the public sector, especially in the infrastructure part. In the later videos, I will discuss more about this. As going forward in the next 1 and 2 years, as you see that for IMF and also World Bank, both of them forecast Vietnam GDP growth at above 6%, and for 2023 then a little bit slowing down from 5.5 to 5.8%, so lower than 6% this year. But going forward in the next few years, still above 6% when the whole economy and also the world getting back to more stable level. Forecast from one of the securities company like VN Direct, they forecast that Vietnam economy is going to grow at trade balance is going to be positive. That's a good thing. If you look into the Vietnam economy as compared to the whole world, Vietnam has been in a big gap compared to a world average in terms of growth. In the future, we still have to see that big gap continue. Okay, you compare this country to the emerging and developing Asia countries, Vietnam also has higher than the average. How about in the very long term? The EIU forecast in the next 10 years, Vietnam GDP growth still above 6%, between 6% to 7% each year. And after that 10 years, 30 years going forward, Vietnam GDP is going to be around near 5%. Still very impressive growth. And as I say, if Vietnam do better in its development, in the cleaning up the corruption, clear policy for better doing business, doing investment environment, and also it is better at doing infrastructure and logistics, then it helps the countries to reduce its economic scaling in that way. Then its potential will be beyond this level, because this forecast level they already based on the economic scaling situation. With the recent trend, Vietnam actually doing quite well to improve all the problems that I discussed about. That come into the Vietnam Global Competitive Index measured by World Bank. Okay, the most recent World Bank report show that Vietnam has been from the bottom 50% of the Global Competitiveness Index jump to top 50% competitiveness index, and is now in the same level with in the same group with the developed markets. Another measure is from United Nations. United Nations have done the measurement for the Sustainable Development Index. Okay, you see Vietnam has jumped so much in this index. It's almost 40 levels over only 4 years. In 2016, it was 88th, ranked 88th, and then 18 is ranked 57, and then 2020 it ranked 49. Impressive jump. And the business environment score measured by EIU, you can see that in the recent years, Vietnam compared to India, okay, is above India in this measure. The table that I listed out, the plus points and minus points for Vietnam investment environment and Vietnam economy as a whole. First one is the geoposition. Vietnam is in the center of the area, and it has a long coastal. The second is the macro. I discussed the increased attractiveness on the overall measurement, as I just mentioned, and the trade agreements and encouraging policies. Government increases on the focus of the infrastructure development, which I will discuss later in later videos, more detail, and political stable, which I discuss a little bit. For enterprises to start have to have long-term sustainable vision. As you know, before, most of enterprises they focus very short-term. For me, they have a lot of fast food mindset. I just want to get the money, investment money from people and put into their pocket and run away, or do something they personally like to do, not stick with the long-term strategy of the company. But recently, more companies have been doing this. And Vietnam also has a growing and young population. So minus points, we have few minus points. First, in the country level, low current infrastructure I discussed, unclear policy system I discussed, corruption is still an issue, need more time to do better. And then also on enterprise level, there are 4 major risks that I discussed in my previous video, is including cultural operating risk, legal risk, transparency and governance risk, IT-related risk. And then also the fast food mindset that I just mentioned. Because of that, it will make investors lose their trust for the not just that business, that company only, but it's to overall economy. So I have observed many investors in the past. They invested in some company and then they got hurt badly. The company get money from foreign investor and then they did bad things, so that the stock price got declined dramatically over time, few years. So those investors then have to sell the stocks back to the owner at a very low price, for example. So lose like 90% or 80% of their investment. So that hurt. They left the country, and if after they left the country, they don't want to come back again because of that experience. Or if they want to come back again, it's going to be long time. That is also the problem. And another problem is also mismatching between investors and investee company. Because some of companies, they are good at raising money, but it doesn't mean that company has a good development resources, a good business coming forward. They may be better at doing marketing, looking for investors. But even some companies, they are doing very well in their business, in their sector, but they are not so open mind or put the mind to think about the capital area. And so when they need the financing, they only go to seek the banks, and the bank resources very limited because you need either the cash flow or the assets to be able to collateral the loan. So because of that, there is a lot of mismatching in terms of capital flow. So with all of that I discussed about, then compare to the past, the past 10 years before, Vietnam has been at the moment and going forward still remain a very good growth perspective, good potential, but on overall the risk level has been reduced, and going forward going to be more reduction because better, more transparent system. Because of that, you can see that Vietnam competitive index has been improved drastically over the past few years, and going forward, I think the 2016 and 14 backward, here they measure very low, but I think might be lack of data also, so it should be above this number, but still you see that the trend is going upward. So Vietnam is currently among the top 61% of the business environment. So this definition of the competitive index. So the most recent edition of the Global Competitiveness Report access 140 economies, okay, and the report made up of almost 100 variables, varies between 1 to 100, and the highest average score means higher degree of competitiveness. So Vietnam is now among the top 40%, right? So from all of this discussion in terms of the economies and in terms of the growth potential, supportive policies, FTAs, and so the political environment, inflation at its, and also is the Vietnam is a benefited country destination for diversification from China market in recent years. So Vietnam should be an attractive place for doing investment and business in the future, in the next few decades going on. So which are the sectors that benefited from all of this, and going forward be potential sectors that we should look into, okay? So here are my opinion from my observation and the sectors that I think are going forward to be attractive in this country. First is manufacturing, which is you can have the consumer products and agriculture and many small industrial products, and then also logistics. Logistics should be also a focus to be able to move around all these manufacturing factories products, okay? And then as I discussed before, Vietnam has a huge gap need to develop in the infrastructure. So in the construction sector, we're going to see more focus on infrastructure, and also of course when there is more development in manufacturing, then we also see more construction in the industrial parks and also in the residentials, because real estate sector is also one of the going forward sectors that because the demand for housing is still high compared to supply. And then the next one is about also a healthcare sector, okay? Healthcare sector is also important for Vietnam because at the moment the healthcare is still a level, only the most necessary level part. And because before people earnings was low, so people only seek for the treatment when they got sick, when they got disease also. But with the recent years, GDP per capita, and also with the out of the COVID situation, people care more about their health going forward. So I think this sector will continue to be a key sector going forward in Vietnam. And then the next one is about the fintech as well as e-commerce, because as I discussed in my previous video about the low level of the IT system in Vietnam. Now with all this going forward, the focus, the attention to the technology, fintech and technology, IT, a must for all companies, almost all companies in the economy. So, and then the green energy, currently the whole world are paying attention to reducing the pollution and focus on investing in green energy part, and Vietnam is a very good geo position for this, with a long coast in the sea and also sunny, and so it's so solar and wind energy should be also one of the going forward sector in Vietnam, although we are still seeing a lot of complication in terms of buyer seller, one buyer EVN, and also complication in terms of policy to operate in this sector. But I hope going forward is going to be better, clear out and settle, so that people, enterprise doing business in Vietnam in this sector can have better land to develop, to increase their ability to develop the products for this sector. So here you can see that in FDI flow into Vietnam at the moment, okay, in recent time. So it has manufacturing is the most part, over 60% of the inflow of the FDI, and then you have real estate, and then you have real electricity and gas, air conditioning supply, and wholesale retail, then transportation, storage, and construction, and that's those sectors that been attracting FDI at the moment. And you know that Vietnam is an agriculture country, right? And in the past we always talk about agriculture products most of the time. And in recent years, the last 2 decades or so, Vietnam has tried to increase its manufacturing output year over year. So over the last 17 years, the Vietnam output in manufacturing product has increased 9-fold as of 2022. Yeah, that's a much higher increase of the output compared to GDP. That's why the contribution in 2005 to the whole GDP was around 18%, and it's around 25% in 2022. Vietnam is trying to do policies, openness agreement, FTA's agreements, and also with the attracting more diversification of manufacturing from China. I think going forward this proportion is going to be larger and each year. In terms of the private equity investment in the sector over the last 3 years, here you see that in manufacturing sector still have the biggest proportion. If you add the consumer discretionary, consumer staples, materials, and industrials together, then it's mostly going to be the contribution part of the manufacturing, right? So largest part, and then you have financials because you know that more foreigners, more companies from foreign countries come into Vietnam to do business, right? Financial institutions go into here to serve their own people. So there are more investment activities in this area in the recent years. Some big M&A deals as well. And then you have also real estate and healthcare also among the recent private equity investment area. Information technology, as I said, IT is also one of the key areas of private investment in recent years. So these are all today. Remember to subscribe to my channel for the future videos, for the upcoming videos related to this topic as well. Okay?